All right, we got some good old pocket change market report excitement for November 16, 2022. This is, of course, your midweek edition of this infamous report brought to you by Sean of BlueRidgeSilverhound. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day and you're ready to find some of the gems in the rough like a lot of other folks have been. So if this is your first time here, welcome first and foremost. Secondly, this is a report that I do twice a week highlighting some of the most recent sales on eBay. In this particular case, all we had to do was go back about 24 hours worth of sales on eBay of coins, whether they're errors or varieties, that people have found out in the wild. Now, traditionally, folks would find these either by going through massive amounts of change. They'll coin roll hunt. That's the art of going to the bank, picking up some bank rolls, going through them in hopes of looking for some of these cool coins. But also, there are folks that go out and cherry pick these, whether they go to a local coin shop, they go to a show, they cherry pick off eBay. The idea is you're trying to buy a unattributed error or variety from some of these folks. Oftentimes they'll either not really care that they have that in there, ask a lot of coin dealers, and probably 9 out of 10 dealers you talk to, they'll say, yeah, we don't really care about that minor stuff. But these coins have a pretty ridiculous secondary market. And, coin dealers, sometimes they just don't want to go the extra mile to sell on eBay. Some see it as kind of a hindrance to them. And that's all well and good. That leaves a lot of opportunity for some of us to simply go out and buy these things, add something pretty cool to our collection, or resell it. I know a good number of people, myself included, that resell for a living. We love finding a lot of these coins, reselling it, and making a lot of money in the process. And you could do that today. And there's no better time than during the holidays. A lot of folks are wrapping up their coins. They're sending it to the bank. They're getting ready for Thanksgiving. They're getting ready for Christmas. They got to be able to buy gifts and put food on the table and just really get ready for the experience. And of course, they have no emotional attachment whatsoever to their piggy bank funds. So there's a lot of great new inventory hitting the scene today. So there's no better time to roll hunt and go through change than right now. And then one last thing before we jump into the actual list. All the coins are ungraded. We don't talk about graded material any because grading introduces such an unneeded expense. They could be as high as $60 to $65 just to attribute one singular error coin. That's PCGS, by the way. So, the coins certainly speak for themselves. There are a number of coins on the list that have sold for as little as a few bucks to as much as many hundreds of dollars. The age-old adage goes, these things sell for themselves. You do not need to grade these. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's see what folks have been finding and selling here on eBay within the last day. Starting out with this one here, it's a 2006 Lincoln Memorial Cent. It looks slightly off-center. The seller even mentioned that it could possibly be a broad strike, but this is actually a really cool error, quite minor to a lot of folks' eyes. It's actually a partial tilted collar. So the collar, which keeps the coin in the striking chamber during the minting process or during the strike, was not fully engaged or plumb the way it's supposed to be. It was kind of tilted a little bit, thereby leaving this kind of stepped feature on the very edge of the coin. You'll notice that it even has a little bit of weakness of where typically that rim would be on the right side of the coin. This one ended up selling for $6.10. Not too bad considering it's a later dated copper coated zinc, and these exist in quite a bit nice larger numbers out there. If you're going through a box of pennies, you'll probably end up having no trouble whatsoever finding coins like this. I found my great fair share. I actually have a whole bag of these things. But, it's like every time you find one, it's a $5 bill, so use that perspective, kind of, tie in the amount of money that you can achieve by selling something like this. Here's another minor error. It's this time on a 2004 Denver. This is a Denver minted Lincoln Memorial cent. As you can see, the coin appears to be a little bit larger, and it is. This is another broad strike, and you can just see the amount of extra space between the base of Lincoln's bust to the rim. It's quite substantial. It's not the biggest broad strike that I've seen, but this one right here would still fit in a traditional penny roll. So if you do come across it and it looks a little bit bigger, that's what you have this time. No partial tilted collar or anything like that on this one. Just a complete absence of the collar, which during the strike, that metal flow has to go outwards even more, kind of like pushing your thumb through a ball of Play-Doh, So pretty neat. It's in decent shape as well. This one also sold for $6.10 with 2 bids this time around. Again, look for these. It's an easy few dollars if you do. Our first, major item on the list has to be this dollar bill, which is crazy looking because it looks miscut. But I want you guys to kind of look and think deeper on this note. You'll notice that the overprint, which is the district seals and serial numbers, appear to be misaligned. But, when you look at that first print, which is all of this black right here, you can see even a little sliver. So the first initial print of the base of this note was misaligned. The actual overprint or third print was in perfect position to the actual size of the note. When we look at the back, it's perfectly centered. So it's that first initial print that's misaligned here. This note sold for $150. It is a 1974 series, a little bit older. But we have, the folks have been finding similar notes like this on some of the newer dates. Pretty crazy that there's still the BEP, that is, making these kind of errors to where they're not being pulled out of the run and replaced by a star note. But who am I to argue? I think these are pretty neat. And if you're able to come away with one, it doesn't matter how minor it is, that is a pretty good score. Our next piece of currency right here, we only have a few pieces of paper money, so it's more coins this week than normal. But we have a note here. It looks pretty weakly inked on the left side, and that's all attributed to an insufficient inkwell. It was running low on ink. You can see the overprint is nice and bold on this one, which is what you want to see. The note is actually in phenomenal shape, but the date on this series is 1995. A little bit older, but not too old to where, it's going to make you feel like you can never find something like this. But pretty cool little error right here. You can see on the back that it's perfectly centered, but there is kind of one extra element that makes this particular note even extraordinary, and that is the fact that it's a web press note. The actual printing plate number is actually here on the top right corner of 1, whereas on the non-web press, it would be on the bottom right, where my mouse pointer is clicked onto. So web press notes, in case you guys are not aware, the actual sheets are fed onto a roll, and then they're printed kind of like a style of newspaper, all right, if you guys have seen that before. Whereas today, on today's printing processes, the notes are printed on sheets that fit either 32 up or 40 up on a sheet. So this was kind of like an attempt to make the cost a little bit inexpensive by using great big rolls to print the notes. But after, a few years of that stint, it didn't quite work out, and they went back to just doing sheets instead of a full roll of paper. So what did this one sell for? Quite interesting. An error and a web press note. $94.20 was the final sale on this one. I felt like it probably could have gone a little bit higher. This is a buy it now listing, so or buy it now, or maybe it was like a minimum bid, like $89 or something like that. But in any event, this is a really cool error note. Okay, now we're on to some more coins. So Maya Angelou right here has had all sorts of attention placed on it here recently, and that's because of the influx of brand new doubled die reverses. These doubled earrings, man, have been kind of a pursuit of sorts for a lot of people out there that's still going through these. It used to be that nobody was looking for any sort of doubled die, but now there's a huge reason to. There are a number of really phenomenal DDRs that were attributed by Dr. James Wiles, and you can see each of those on VarietyVista.com. However, this one, I think we have a brand spanking new one that has emerged, and it's going to feature this pretty wild, just way out here, extra earring. This is nowhere close to the VDDR number 1, which the doubled earring is like hugged right up closely to the earring itself. This one's way out further. Never have I seen this one yet. We could be looking at VDDR number 4. There was also one other doubled earring that someone had discovered. Actually, I saw 2 others where the earring is punched like way out here. Not punched, but as part of the double die process. Yeah, the earring's like way out here. So there's a few brand new ones. Let's see if they become attributed by Dr. Wiles. This ought to be very interesting. This is actually a crazy looking one. This one ended up selling for $207.95. And my friends, that has everything to do with the new discovery aspect of it. Since it's the only one that's been publicly traded online or sold online, I'm willing to bet that probably the new owner is to end off sending that one off to Dr. Wiles to get attributed. So there you go, guys. You saw it here first. Brand new discovery. Another yet crazy looking double to die reverse on the Maya Angelou's. Just plenty more reasons for you guys to look at these a little bit more closely. So we got this 1955S Lincoln Cent. A pretty cool one here. It's actually got kind of a little bit shorter mintage compared to some of the other dates around it. And it always seems to be kind of a favorite of most people that hunt and they look for these. But this one's here for a really special reason. It's a cherry picker's guide variety. It's got the S over S over S RPM. Pretty nuts. It looks like just waves coming off the coast of, or on a pond or something after throwing a rock in there. You see these ripples. So that's what this one looks like. It's FS501 in the cherry picker's guide. And this coin is in pretty decent shape. Sold for $48.90 was the final sale price. These things have gone up in value. I remember these things as recently as a few years ago selling for like $15-20. So there is definitely some need and desire for higher graded examples of this coin. And there you go. Case in point. Well, there was another wounded eagle, Sacagawea. Poor old eagle is really getting hammered out here on eBay these days. But it's a really good find that is worth its weight in gold. It's on a 2000p SAC dollar. These have the infamous raised die gouges. It's raised on the coin, but it's an actual gouge and dig on the actual dies. So that's how it all works. But you could see the raised line that goes through the eagle's breast feather area, and then there's another secondary smaller little gouge that goes through the wing there. So the coin right here has a few scratches, a few nicks. It's not the prettiest example. However, the sale was quite nice. $100.60 was the final sale price. Again, these things have been hitting just a huge stride, showing again that they are not rare at all, that these are out there in pretty vast numbers. So please do look for these. This is like free, easy money, just waiting for you. Now, it's been quite some time since I talked about this coin, but we actually had 2 of them here that sold here within the last few days. 1970D Washington quarter that was accidentally struck on dime thickness stock. It was not struck on a dime planchet. No, it was struck on, because you guys know how much thinner a dime is compared to a quarter. So somewhere along the way, the actual quarter-sized planchets were accidentally punched out of dime thickness strips. So when these things were struck, and they only seem to have shown itself on 1970 D Washington quarters and no other dates. But typically on these, they're going to weigh a lot less than a traditional Washington quarter. These actually only weigh in between like 4 grams to about 4.2, 4.3 grams. So it's a few grams light on here. But you can see just the general thickness on a lot of the areas on this one. You can see it on the reverse as well. Because the mid presses are calibrated to a certain pressure for the thickness of the planchets. If it's going to strike a much thinner planchet for a different denomination, you are going to see the weakness. So this particular coin, really nice shape, sold for $80.60. Again, these are quite valuable, and they're picked up at a rapid rate. These things do not last long on the market. Here's another Maya Angelou. Of course, we got another, I guess, doubled earring, right? That's the only reason why that these are on the list these days. The drooling die chips and all the other, BS that kind of was fool's gold at the very beginning. Turns out, there's a much better kind of find to be looking for on these. But there you go. Now, this is the VDDR number 1. This is the originator. This is the one that kind of set the trend. Now, this one was only a $15 sale. However, there's something to note about this one in that it took a well-placed hit right over the earring right here, smashing it, clobbering it to bits, which will affect the value. All right. As far as eye appeal, this does not do a whole lot to enhance its value. Because these things have been selling for between $30 and $40. To see this one sold for $15, I thought to myself, man, why though? And then I looked at the earring, I'm like, oh yeah, it's chewed up and beat up, and it looks horrible, even though you still have the doubling. So $15 sale here. So here's the other 1970D that was sold here in the last day. That was struck on dime thickness stock. Again, you can see some of the usual kind of weakness in certain areas on Liberty and the Motto. A lot more weakness on the reverse, however, on this one. All right, so that's kind of like the variance here. This example sold pretty close to the other one at $78.88. This one, the seller actually used a scale to show you guys the weight. 4.1 grams was the weight on this one, which is quite a bit lower than the standard quarter. I don't know. This might be the last piece of it. No, we actually have one more after this. But hey, how about a 1993 $1 bill with a myriad of various gutter folds? These are actually wrinkles on the sheet, and they were printed over, leaving these canals that you see here. So after you stretched out all of the wrinkles in question, then it'll leave some pretty nice voids in those areas. And you can see it on the reverse as well. This note, nice fanned out accordion style of gutter folds, and there's I count 3 of them on this one. So this one ended up selling for $77.67 with 20 total bids. If you guys have quite a few of these Morgan dollars, this is another good variety to look out for. It's actually a top 100 VAM as well. Silver, early silver, bulk, trashy, clean, damaged coins will have renewed life. If you're able to find something like this time an 1882 dated Morgan. It does have an O mint mark on the reverse, but this is the renowned O over S mint mark. You can actually see the inner kind of like diagonal curl of the S on the inside of that O right there. There's an earlier state, there's a later state of these. So just to let you guys know, one will look a lot stronger than the other. But a good one here, $62 was the sale price on this one with 14 bids. Note the condition. It's not that fantastic. It doesn't have a lot of extra premium above melt value if it didn't have this VAM variety. So another good one to be on the lookout for. Kind of double down, recheck your silver stack for things like this. Holy Batman. Yeah, this is a coin that has shot way up into pricing territory that a lot of people are priced out of. 1983 Lincoln Cent. Note the condition. This thing is not the most gorgeous example. It's got zinc rod on the front. You can see those plating blisters. This is kind of like a risky buy because of that. But this is the world famous doubled die reverse. I mean, what else more do I need to say? This thing is just some of the most dramatic doubling that you'll find on a quote unquote modern era Lincoln. Coins and cards, of course, is your seller for this one. There's a little bit of the doubling on E Pluribus Unum and United States of America, which are all quite nice and strong, but 1 cent is going to feature the strongest doubling that you will come across on any of these. Also note the doubled base of the Lincoln Memorial along with the FG initials. This thing is all knotted up with excitement. So this was a coin in this condition that you could have picked up for around $100 3 years ago. This one ended up selling for $282.77. And that's with 33 total bids. So call it what it is. The popularity is off the charts with these. And, could it be that there's less and less like decent looking examples out there that aren't all beat up and zinc rotted to death? Could be. I don't know. I know this for certain. I don't talk about this coin as much as I used to these days because there's just not as many of them out there for sale. So the supply is definitely a lot thinner for this one compared to the demand, which is just skyrocketing northward, and they continuously to go up. Another neat one here. I mean, it's no 1983 DDR, but how about 1944 D over S Lincoln Memorial, or Lincoln Wheat Cent rather. This is the over mint mark. Number 2, you could see the inner curl of the S kind of snaking its way through the D right here. Very well-known one. This is an earlier state because you can actually see the line of the S going through the mint mark there. So always a popular one. There's the OMM number 1 and then the OMM number 2. This is the number 2. This is the least desirable out of the two types. However, this one's still a good find, and a sale at $64. Yeah, you just you can't turn away that kind of cash, especially for this coin. Now, this is a pretty looking example here. Now, this seller has quite a few of these, and I'm sure he is. It's probably Brian Rybar, right? He sells quite a few of these, just gem, BU. Silver wartime nickels. I mean, on that merit alone, I mean, these things are phenomenal looking. And it rivals any other silver coin during its day in terms of just presentability. But these things have that giant mint mark on top of the dome of Monticello, and these things are all crazy with different types of RPMs, repunchment marks, that is. This one is a D over D over D. So you have what looks to be a northwestern punch of the Denver mint mark and a southern punch as well. It's not the most craziest RPM that I've seen on a wartime silver, but this one is pretty cool actually. And I'm glad that the coin is in mint state condition because you can see this really well. But you guys need to check out all of your silver wartime nickels for these. There's a bunch of them too, dozens of various RPMs for these dates. This one sold for $17.11. It's RPM number 17. Pretty neat one here, but these again are the most accessible CUD die breaks that you can find in the market today for cheap. This is a West Virginia Statehood Quarter, 2005P is the date and mint. This one has that pretty nice little CUD right here, about K4 on the reverse, the 4 o'clock position that is. And a piece of the die had fallen off, so when these coins are struck, the die flow actually goes into that void where the die is missing the piece, thereby leading to a buildup, a bubble of sorts on the rim. This one sold for $11.36 with 2 bids. If you guys are looking for like a really easy variety to find, man, look no further than the 2016 P Harpers Ferry quarters. These are West Virginia's, of course. These coins are still being found in droves, especially in much nicer condition. So this is like an auto find anytime you can. But note this this first door here on this side of the building with all these little window panes. This is where you're going to find some pretty cool doubled dies. This one has doubling in 4 of the window panes here. And you're never going to believe it, but, you know, according to Wexler's website, doubleddie.com, he has 160 doubled dies recognized for the Harpers Ferry quarters. Talk about a freaking field day of discovery. Now, the coins themselves don't sell for a lot of money because these are all quite minor in the variety department. This one right here, for example, sold for $5.57. But think about the possibilities. Every time you find one, I would say the rate is like 75% of the Harpers Ferry run has double the dies on them. That's how plentiful they are. But it's a $5 bill for every single one that you find. And if you're going through rolls of quarters, man, Harpers Ferry is one of the highest minted ETB quarters, you know, during its era. So I'm telling you, you got to look out for these. And they're all in pretty decent shape these days, you know, 6 years later, that they are still a worthwhile find. But if you went through, say, for example, a $500 box of quarters, you'll probably end up finding maybe 10, 20 double dies for Harpers Ferry. Another neat one here. This is one that you don't see too often. 1946 Lincoln Wheat Cent. This one, another CUD die break at the base of Lincoln's bust right here. This one ended up selling for $30. So CUDs, again, continue to be king in the error world, and especially on the secondary market, where, you know, an acceptable amount of money is being pushed toward these errors. I believe this is our last piece of currency on the list, but check out that serial number on a 2009 $1 Fed Reserve note. So it's a mix of 4s and 5s, all right? So folks have loosely called these binaries. A true binary, of course, are 0s and 1s. So people are still using binaries for any 2-digit combo for a serial number, regardless of what it is. So that's what we have here. Note's in pretty decent shape. This is a $29 sale. Heck yes, not bad. Again, another gem in the rough to look out for there in your change. Open up your wallets. Make sure you're not overlooking stuff like this. This is a 1978 D Kennedy half dollar. Has just a really shallow rim clip. Nothing too crazy here. Looks like it could be kind of like a find from a box of candy half dollars. It's nothing wild or exciting. But this one sold for $27.60. What are people thinking these days? Apparently they're collectors of these, and they go by dates. So a Denver Mint Mark candy half dollar with in error on it, regardless what it is, I would imagine not too common out there. No date, Washington quarter. It's off center by quite a bit. Looks like about 25-30%. This is a $30 sale. You know, it has no date, so me personally, I don't see any personal feelings or interest or emotional attachment to a coin like this if it doesn't have a date. But, you know, if someone wanted a dramatic off-center Washington quarter, this might be your type right here. Well, we did have another 1983 Lincoln Memorial with the DDR. Yeah, I mean, this one has no close-ups, but that's okay. You guys can see it perfectly clear. This one has some sort of, I don't know what staining this is on the front, so I would say, man, this is so tough. Because this one, if you look at the reverse, this one looks a lot better than the other example we talked about earlier in the show. But that obverse is a killer. That actually kills me a little bit. Could be maybe carbon spotting or something to that effect. But, it's another example. And these things continuously sell and pound out huge numbers. This one sold for $206.50 with 2 bids. They just keep going up. Here's a really nice looking 1971, and you can see a mint mark. This is a Denver minted Lincoln Memorial. It's off center by about 60%. One I would imagine, pops up on occasion, but not too readily available. You might have to wait a few weeks to find one of these if you need it for a date set. $41.88. The coin actually looks pretty nice too. We have a $10 roll of quarters, straight from the bank. These are fun. When you could find something like this and it's so blatantly obvious what's in it, you can just keep it sealed. But it better be something good, because this roll sold for $85. Could it be like a W Mint Ender, or could it be something else? It is something else, by the way. It's got a Tuskegee Airman Strikethrough on the building, on the reverse. This is a 2021 P, by the way. The last quarter in the America the Beautiful series, with a really cool field restricted strike-through. That, again, these things, you can't ignore them. They're still popularly collected today. The bigger the strike-through, the more they're worth. This one's more medium. But it looks like the building really is on fire. And again, it's all about placement. That's why these things have been so hot for the last year to year and a half. And then finally, we're going to end it off on one of my favorites this week. This is a coin that I don't get to talk about or see too often, but this 1961, at least in theory, that's what the seller said it is. Lincoln Memorial Cent looks like road rash. I'm not kidding. To untrained eyes, that's what it looks like. But notice the tremendous weakness on the reverse. So what's going on here? This is a coin that was struck on a planchet that had split before it was struck. So the actual planchet is quite considerably more thinner than what a normal thickness planchet for a Lincoln Cent was. These you could see either in two different ways. You could see these struck on an already split planchet, or you could see these struck on a complete planchet and then it split afterwards, which has kind of like two different types of looks. You'll actually, on that latter example, will have a full strike on the reverse. So that's kind of like the marquee differentiator between the two, in case you guys are interested. But I found probably 4 of these over the course of the last 15 years. So they're out there. You just need to know what they are, because at first glance, you're going to think, man, this thing was in a parking lot on the ground and it got ran over a few dozen times. Okay, that's kind of like the initial reaction that you should have for these if you don't know what it is. But this is a $34.95 sale. Call it for what it is, $35. Pretty nice here. And the coin is in really phenomenal shape. Yeah, look out for these. They're out there. All right, guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for this one. I'm your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I certainly did. Hopefully this one gave you a little bit of inspiration to go out there and find some big ones of your own. There's plenty out there. There's no shortage of errors and varieties in the wild. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this one. You guys have a tremendous rest of your week. I shall see you guys on the next coin video. Take care.